Hello everyone, my name is Captain Michael Slater of the Detroit Fire Department, Fire Marshal Division in the Fire Prevention Section. And today we're going to talk about occupancy classifications, specifically mercantiles per NFPA 101 2018 edition. But first, let me give you a brief introduction of myself. I've been on the Detroit Fire Department since November 2000, where I rode the back end in fire suppression until 2014. I had a great time fighting fires and everything, and I thought that there was something more that I could do in the fire service. So then I went to the Fire Academy as an instructor, and I helped train the new cadets as they came onto the job. And then I came to fire prevention in 2017, where I began my career as an inspector and training officer. And this aspect of the job really is fulfilling for me, because I feel like I do a greater good. I help do a greater good in preventing catastrophes. Okay, so that's a brief introduction of myself. Let's do a little housekeeping here. In the unlikely event of an emergency, the exits are down the hall and to the right. Your restrooms are down the hall and to the left. And in case you need to take a phone call, please feel free to step out of the room and take your phone call. Please place your phones on silent or vibrate not to disturb our other learners. All right, so let's get into it. Occupancy classifications, mercantiles. Some of our objectives today will be to better identify certain nuances in specific occupancy types, i.e. storage, aisle width, and means of egress. Okay. Also, where to locate the definitions and explanatory information inside of our code books here. And again, we're working out of the 101 2018 edition. Lastly, to ensure or assure that we are designating the correct occupancy type to enforce the appropriate codes. We always want to make sure that we're being fair to our customers and applying the appropriate code for that occupancy. Okay? So some of my advice that I like to give to our new inspectors when they come down and start their career as inspectors is always keep a set of code books with you in your vehicle while you're making your rounds. That way, before you go into your occupancy or your business, you can do your research when you get there, okay? Before you even go in, you have an idea of what to expect, okay? So you can briefly confirm that occupancy by looking up the definition. And in what code book will we find the definition for occupant-specific codes? In this case, again, it would be 101, and in this case, for new mercantiles, it would be Chapter 36. All right. So in some cases, you will see an asterisk next to our code reference. That asterisk means that there's more explanation in the back of our book in our annex, and we'll get into that a little later here. And we also want to read that occupancy type in 101 to get that specific code requirement for that occupancy type so that we can be prepared for our inspection. All right, that's very important when we're doing our inspections. So mercantile occupancy. What is a mercantile occupancy? I like to think of it as a business that you walk into empty-handed, you pay for an object or merchandise, and you walk out with that merchandise, okay? In NFPA 101, Chapter 3.3.196.9 defines mercantile occupancy as an occupancy used for the display and sale of merchandise, okay? Notice that there's an asterisk next to the code reference here, okay? In our annex 3.3.196.9, mercantile occupancy gives us some of the following: auction rooms, department stores, drugstores, restaurants with fewer than 50 persons, okay? Our shopping centers, and so on. Now keep in mind that office, storage, service facilities incidental to the sale of the merchandise and located in the same building should be considered part of the mercantile occupancy classification. So think of your bank that might be located inside of that supermarket. Okay, I think that's a good example. Okay, so in 36.1.2.2.1, we have mercantile sub-classifications. And we have 3 of those sub-classifications. Class A, any mercantile occupancy that has a greater square footage of 30,000 square feet, more than 3 stories for sales purposes. Okay, our Class B, and we have 2 sub-classifications in Class B, and A, Class B, will be more than 3,000 square feet, but not more than 30,000 square feet, and occupying not more than 3 stories for sales purposes. Okay, and then we have B in Class B, any mercantile occupancy of more than 3,000 square feet, occupying 2 or 3 stories for sales purposes. Okay, and then lastly, we have Class C. That's our more common mercantile types. In this case, a Class C will be not more than 3,000 square feet. So think of your mom and pop shops, your party stores, in some cases maybe a 7-Eleven, and those are examples. So in conclusion, things are not always as they may appear from our initial size up outside of the building. Okay, we may have the wrong definitions that we're thinking of when we arrive to our location, and think of dry cleaners where you walk in and you walk out with something. Okay, in this case, you were walking out with merchandise not that you paid for, but you had serviced. Okay, that's different. That's a different occupancy type. All right, we must also familiarize ourselves with the correct occupancy type to enforce the correct codes. Again, we want to be fair to our customers and make sure that we're enforcing the correct codes. All right. Lastly, within these occupancy types, there are many different basic code requirements, such as extinguishers, emergency lighting, required means of egress, and etc. All right. So I hope that everyone had a good time, and I hope that everyone learned about our mercantile occupancy types. Thank you.